two accelerating drums from the K controllers for ASL-100. The one over here is the K35G2, which is the style of controller that was in the car when we got it. The other one had been stolen. This is the K35C controller, which came out of our stock. Both of them were in fairly used condition. And by that you can see this burned off area. These are called segments because they're parts of an arc. So the ends of these segments have been badly burned off. Now what I'm in the process of doing is rehabilitating many of these. We have some new ones, we have some old ones. We have a whole stock of these right here, and they have the Loctite end, which is very rare now, but we happen to have quite a bunch of them. So where I can, I'll put new ones in, and where I can do it, I'll restore the original. You can see this one looked as bad as this one an hour or so ago when I started it. Now, so I'm showing if it's original, that we didn't change it, we just rehabilitated it, or new. Now on the end of every one of these, you have a segment, or a burning tip, excuse me, a burning tip, which is supposed to take all the punishment. And you replace that, instead of having to replace a whole long piece of copper. All of these are bad. There are 14 of this style in the controller, and we're going to have to replace all of them. And the other controllers about the same way. Now along the way, they put in another style called the lap type, and the lap type is the more modern kind. It has a, whether we can, yeah, here's one right here. Let me take this off, and you can see the difference. You'll see it's longer and easier to machine, cheaper to buy, $3.04, $18.25 for the same thing. That's the current price. I'll talk about that in a minute. So you see how that laps over, whereas this one hooks underneath like that. In theory, it's a pretty good idea, but they tend to fall out and they're expensive to make, so they don't use them anymore. Having said that, I've just been in contact with the Eureka Electrical Equipment Manufacturer in Northeast, that's the name of the town, Pennsylvania, where they still make these. And that's where I got the prices, $3.04, $18.25, because of the labor on that. Now what we're going to do, as I said, we're going to save as much of the original as we can. But we can't save those, or there's one that might be salvageable, but by and large they're pretty well worn out. We're going to buy new screws. This is a very special screw with a very shallow countersink, and it's an unusual 1424 thread, which used to be a standard in electrical industry but isn't so much anymore. All of these, I have a book which I put together on all these controllers, and well, let's see, there's all the different segments showing the lap type ends, and we look at these, and then we've called the Eureka Electrical Company in Northeast Pennsylvania, and there's their machinery right here. This is machinery that they would have made this stuff. This is the bronze that they use for casting parts. And this is Roger Meal, who was the son of the president of the company, and a bronze hammer which he gave me because they make those. And here we are outside of the building. This is 5 years ago. And here's the plant. It sort of fits in. It's Civil War era. Look at the ceiling of the office there with this wonderful decoration on top. And this is a track behind their plant where they used to haul coal in, which they used for heating their forges that they made the parts on. I don't know how they stay in business, because there's certainly not a lot of business in this sort of stuff. But anyway, Fortunately, they are, and we're going to put in an order. I've been figuring it out. Things are not as bad as I thought they were, and I'm able to save an awful lot of these. So this one will shortly go into the controller, which is in the car. Now I should show you how we can transform one of these fairly quickly. I'll take one of these out. I just put them all in yesterday to make sure we had what they were, and I'm also stamping where they go so that they won't get mixed up. So we'll take this out, and two different, all right, this is a little Delta portable, or not portable, but small belt sander. Makes a lot of noise. This is what it looks like now. See, it's starting to flatten out. I'm going to do just half of it. Now this sandpaper is a lot coarser than what I wanted to use. Our last fine belt broke this morning, and I just ordered refined belt. So now I'm going to leave that in because I could sand and sand and sand, and it would finally go away, but when you lose so much copper, it would ruin it. All right, now that's not too bad. Now what I'll do is take it over here on what they call a light deburring wheel, and it's a wheel with a non-woven nylon abrasive with a nylon wheel which is impregnated with abrasive. Now because of that coarse paper, I won't be able to get it all off, but it's certainly adequate for operation. I could spend all day polishing it down to nothing, but it's not really necessary. So that looks a little better than it did before, and we'll be able to save that. Now these we could replace, but when you get one of them, they're very, very expensive. If you got 50 of them, then the price would come down, and of course we have that kind of end on it. Fortunately, for two reasons, we don't need to. Some because we have some spares, and some because we have able to polish it up. So it won't be long before we actually put this in the controller. Now, to interrupt, this pile of parts here, which is being worked on by a volunteer who doesn't happen to be here right now, is what they call the trolley base. It's actually upside down, but this is what controls the tension of the pole on the wire. And we thought it would be well, since we had someone who was willing to work on it and knew what they were doing, that we clean it up, replace some of these pins which are wearing, and sandblast it and paint it. The bearings look pretty good. There's another half that goes in here. This is all upside down, so it's hard to imagine. Anyway, with roller bearings in here, and they're cleaned up and ready to go in. So that little pins that go in the floor, these, you don't often see these. They usually get broken off, but we had one of our volunteers who worked in a machine shop, and he manufactured those. So those will go down into holes in the floor, which we find are still there. And this can just barely get this big piece of cast iron into our
into the sandblaster.
Into our sandblaster. Right. Don't show the missed areas that I.
Yeah. If we could get the window, reverse it around, that'd be great. Okay.
This is that controller drum that we were looking at goes right here. The area for reversing goes over here, and in a moment we'll show you what one looks like, partially assembled anyway. Yeah, that's the one for the second controller. That we aren't finished painting it yet. one of the distinctive features of the locomotive is Atlantic Shoreline Railway, with a period after it, we just noticed, after all these years. And it was not on 100 after, say, about 1910 or 12, but it really says what this locomotive represents, so we're going to put it on. Well, because we replaced the wood here, and because it had the paint had all fallen off anyway, there was zero trace of any of the lettering on the side. But there were very good photographs. This is a picture of 100 in 1907, and this is a picture of its twin, 102, in probably about 1908 or 9, somewhere in there. And this one is even better because it's almost straight on, and we can get a pretty good idea of what size the letters are. We know that this is 12 inches high, so knowing that, we can figure out the width of the letters, and I was doing it in metrics. This is 28 millimeters high and 15.5 millimeters wide, and I transposed that into inches. Now what we're going to do with this is one of our members is going to look on his computer. He has Adobe Illustrator, and there are all kinds of fonts, and he'll find one that's close to this, and then he'll start playing with the letters that they have so that they become this. And he will make, and we're not sure which way we're going to go, whether we'll have vinyl letters made for us that we'll stick on, or whether we'll have a stencil that we can then paint the letters on. And either one can be done with the same process. So we're going on that. This one I like a little better because the letters are a little bit more distinct. They're thinner. These over on this one, they look rather fat, whereas here they're more delicate, which is the way they used to be. And we are also locating on the car, that's what this sheet is underneath, various landmarks. Like I located these bolts right here, and then here's a ladder on the side of the car with the S just inside of it and the H on the other side. So with all those, we can pretty well tell where it goes. We know that this is the front left-hand corner of the cab because that one corner had the steps to get up to the roof, and they're still there. The numbers we'll talk about way later. We did find what we think are the original numbers when we scraped the paint off. So this area had never been scraped, whereas this area we, of course, just threw away. So that's a work in progress. Okay, we're looking at the number 1 roof hood. This is of different construction than the other end. They use tenons, which they didn't down there, mortise and tenons. And we've had to replace a lot of the wood because it was just not in very good shape. We did save the end of it and all the sheathing on it and the sheathing from the side and the doors and so forth. Volunteer is working on this, and he's not here today, but he has been working on it quite a bit. There'll be, well, we'll see this on the other end, the roof, which I don't.
No, we hadn't done the roof yet.
All right, well, we can look at that. But I want to show you something else. It was a pleasant surprise when I came in. Oh, someone painted that black, and Dougie's going to be mad because that's supposed to be aluminum. It's unpainted. This, I think I did show it to you, but we didn't have it.
Right.
This is, these are for mounting the sander hose on the front of the truck. And we had this one, and then one of our volunteers made the other one. And we're beginning to find these various parts. Not right. Well, maybe that is supposed to be that. I was wondering why that angle is like that. This is, we're pulling the pin out of the coupler. Oh yeah, okay, this is going to have to get straightened out. A lot of this is new. I was away for a week and all kinds of wonderful things happened. But we'll have to.
So what's that for?
This is what's called a knuckle. And when you want to couple to another car, you have this open, you have this knuckle open, and when you run into the car, it couples. This pin falls down, and that's locked. And this is how you, because you don't want to be inside too much, there'll be a little pin holding that up, and you lift this and that uncouples. But I see some problems here. We're
Yeah.
gonna have to adjust. Yes, did you see these?
Nope.
Okay. You haven't been here for a while. Somewhere about 1939 or 1940, 100 grew a sandbox hopper on each end. How sand got to the wheels before, we don't know. Maybe it never did. I read somewhere, I thought that it had a sander when it's built, but I maybe have been wrong, and they just did it with throwing it under by hand. So this box, I'm on the wrong side, but they were on the right-hand side of the car. It sat right here, and underneath it is a device which will show on the other end. Maybe we should
Yeah.
take it right down. This is a new one to replace the old one, which was all rusted out. It will sit about here. That box will go on top of it. This will have a hole underneath it, which will go down to this device right on the floor, which has a hose that leads down to the rail right in front of the wheel. And if the wheel starts spinning, they turn a valve in the car, and that allows air to come down that tiny pipe you see, which extends all the way up to the cab. And then the sand will get blown from that little, they call it a trap, and it'll end up on the rail.
And these are the older ones, right?
Yeah,
One of
one
them.
we're going to save.
Yeah.
This is the one that we replaced. This is one we can save. A couple of pieces of wood on the side to keep it upright. This is the number 2 end, which the hood is largely complete. When we got the Locomotive, I'm not sure whether it had canvas on it or not. Sorry about that. When we got the Locomotive, I don't know whether it had the original canvas on it or not, but at some point pretty early on, tar paper was put over that to cover it. Now this lift, this is the number 2 hood. Originally it was covered with canvas. Starting up here, we could find little traces of the tacks on the front. It went down like this, over here and around underneath. When we got to work on it, it had been replaced with tar paper, so we pulled that all off. And eventually when the hinges are in here, this will lift up for maintenance. The air compressor is underneath here, and that's about all. Okay, I guess that. In order to get into the cab safely, it was very difficult during the winter because we took these handrails off, but now it's not hard at all to get up inside. And if I wanted to walk around to the end of the car, I'd walk on here. Now with the wood there, it's not very good, and you can see it's not very safe anyway.
Yeah.
In fact, in car 102, the sisters of this Locomotive, near the end of its days, they put a slant here to keep you from walking there. But 100, as far as we know, didn't ever have it.
Okay.
Okay. I don't think anything was in here, was it?
Well, the windows were.
But
That was about it.
All right, we've begun to, well, we actually were pretty well finished with finding all the details that go into the cab, and I'll just talk about them as we go around. First of all, the most prominent one is the big main switch, and this is what, if something goes wrong in the wiring, before anything can happen, this will shut off and the car will stop. There's one on each end of the car. When the car was built, it didn't have them. They had a whole different system of control underneath, and they had a circuit breaker that was under here in this cabinet. But these are a later day addition. This is the wire. Starts out up on the roof. This comes through the switch, comes down here, goes around, goes down through the floor, and then comes back up inside and ends up right here. Now, when this controller was the controller that was here, when it was stolen, they cut all the wires off. So this wire was not, was missing right at the floor level. What I did was we replaced a lot of wire in one of our other cars. It was exactly like this, and it was old, the exact same vintage. So I spliced it right down inside there, about a 4-foot piece, and that's what actually is in the controller now. So it looks almost like new. Now, I don't think they ever went to the trouble of polishing these, but when it's brass, we just have to do that. The little switch up there, the first one is for the 5 lights up overhead. There's the builder's plate from the Locomotive car company. This is the bell, which is on the outside. This says main switch, which refers to this one. And there's where the power comes in, and it goes to 3 different places. This one, I think, was to the original headlight outside. This one goes to the air compressor. There's a fuse that goes in here, a switch for the air compressor, and then this goes down to the air compressor governor, which is a switch. I don't know how much that's going to show up.
Yeah, not too much.
Which is a switch that turns the pressure switch that turns the controller on when it needs the air, or when the pressure goes down. And then this third one is for the portable headlights on each end. The wire goes down, gives the power to a headlight resistor, which is out front under the number 1 hood, and then it goes and splits to each end of the car. There will be a switch. What happened to it? We had a switch right here ready to go in. I don't know where the wires are. Something I was
There's a
working
switch
on.
behind you, that one?
Yeah, it'll be this switch, but I don't know why the wires are out. This is something I was working on before vacation, and I guess I got interrupted. But anyway, there'll be a switch here that says headlight on it. The duplex.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Here we have the duplex air gauge. Notice who made it. It was made for the General Electric company. And one side says the pressure in the brake cylinder and the other in the air tank. This was overhauled by a volunteer who lives in Old Orchard, does absolutely beautiful work. There's the same, everything that's here is on the other end of the car also, except these couple of switches. This is a whistle. Oh, the whistle's in the car. The whistle valve, which was stuck. We'll have to see what's wrong with that. We'll fix that. Here's the engineer's valve to operate the brakes. Here's the engineer's valve to operate the sand, which is out front. And then all the pipes that go to the various functions that the car has. And then, as I say, you have the same thing on the other end. A replacement for the one that was stolen. Yes?